Hello, this is Lenny Rogers with the Cooperative Extension Service, and this month is the month of April, and we're going to cover several things as far as some pruning, lawn care, getting ready to plant your vegetable garden, look at a cover crop, and look at some fruit trees and some grafting that's taking place on a few fruit trees, look at some fertilization. Okay, as far as fertilizing goes for the month of April, really shouldn't be fertilizing your lawn. It should have already been done either in February or March. So the only thing we really should be fertilizing if we did not get to any of our shrubs, maybe fertilize some of your shrubs here in early April, or even fruit trees like this apple tree behind me. Some people wait to see how much fruit set they're going to get based on the frost and that type of thing, and then apply their fertilizer accordingly. Of course, if you get a heavy fruit set, you'd want to fertilize more, and if frost did kill most of everything, you wouldn't want to fertilize too heavy. Also, in the month of April, some things you might want to do is you would want to start a spray program for your fruit trees, such as the ones right here behind me. You can get an all-purpose fruit tree spray for the homeowners, and you basically start spraying at bloom and continue that every 10 to 14 days throughout the season. Pretty much the same thing with grapes, and we'll look at some grapevines here in a minute. But you need to start a fruit tree spray on that, especially if you've had funguses that's bothered or killed your grapes in years past. And then also if you have roses, and you may want to start that spray program up for a black spot and aphids and that type of thing on your roses. Okay, we have here with us today one of my old master gardeners, Eugene Conley, that took the Master Gardener course, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago under me, and he took an interest in grafting, which is one of the sessions in the class, and he took some additional grafting classes at, I think, Wilkes Community College, didn't you, Eugene? So he's done some unique things here with some of his pears, and I'm just going to let Eugene explain to you what he's done here.
All right, today we're going to talk about, I have a pear tree. I planted it about 7 years ago. The fruit was not true. It was supposed to be a Kiefer pear, and so I'm in the process of changing the variety of pear altogether. And last year I did a graft here on this limb, and it's took and it's growed that much in 1 year. Now this year I did these grafts here, and they're putting out green growth here. This one hasn't put out any green growth yet, but this one has took. This graft is also took. This graft here is coming on, but once these grafts get to growing well, I'll come in here and cut this off here. So I will have completely changed the variety of this pear. After this year, I'll come in and shorten this limb, and it looks unusual now, but I'll shorten this limb to even up with the others. And but also with pears, some of this fruit I'll have to remove. It sets more fruit than what you want. The fruit won't be as sweet if they'll be small and not as sweet if you leave all the pears on it.
And I see here you've got some other pears that you're doing some of the same thing too, and you've got some different varieties of Asian pears.
I've got about 4 varieties of Asian pears. I have the Koshui, Hoshui, I have the Olympic Giant, and
I think the other one was Shinshui.
But I'm also grafting on another tree that's American pear, and the quality's not good as the Asian pears, so I'm grafting on it also. All right, we're going to talk about this crimson clover I've got sown in my garden here. I'll till this in here shortly when it gets dry enough, and it will make a really good humus for the soil. It's great for cover crop in the fall.
Okay. Thank you, Eugene. This makes a really good cover. I've used rye this year, but I think I like the clover better. This is a great cover. While we're talking about the garden, I will mention in early April, if you haven't already set out, some of the things you can set out before the chance of frost ends is broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, onions, potatoes, things like that. And then usually our last frost date usually runs April 15th, April 20th, somewhere in there. And if you see in the long-range forecast that there's no frost danger in 10 days past that, maybe April, late April, you can go ahead and plant your warm season vegetables. And that includes many things like tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers, beans, things of that nature. So late April, you may be getting out some of those warm season vegetables in your garden. Okay, just a couple odd chores or things you might do during the month of April. It's a good month to, if you want to propagate possibly one of your favorite shrubs, you could lean one of the limbs down to the ground, covered up with soil and mulch, and it'll eventually take root. So layering, propagation by layering, you can go ahead and do that and take action and let that process start this month if you want to take that cutting off of that favorite shrub and move it or give it to someone else with a new plant. Another thing in the month of April, a lot of people do, which is a wise thing, and that is put out mulch around fruit trees, your shrubs, landscape beds, whatever. As we're starting to get some warmer days, we have a lot more evaporation. So besides adding beautification to a landscape, it actually holds moisture in and helps the plants thrive and do better. So mulching is a practice that would really be good to go ahead and do this month of April. And then also I want to mention, as you plant your vegetable plants and different things, you're trying new varieties, put a label out there beside them, see how they perform, and then you'll know at the end of the growing season what variety that was and if you want to plant that again or if you don't want to plant that. So label those plants that you put out in the garden and to give you some information on them. Okay, here in the month of April, we've got a treat today. We're here at one of our master gardeners here in Alexander County, Phil Bowman. And Phil's got a variety of plants in bloom here in early April. And I hadn't been up here this time of year, so it's a real treat. So Phil, just tell us what you got.
Welcome to Eden, Lenny. It's a pleasure for y'all to be out here. It is a beautiful time of year. Everything's a bit early blooming this year, but it's a fabulous time, so we'd be glad to show you some beautiful plants in bloom and some that most people probably haven't seen. So we can begin right here. Behind us is a Persian lilac, which one blooms a little earlier than most lilacs and has a tremendous fragrance that just is delightful. And of the lilacs, it's one of my favorites. It blooms every year. And from here, we can move on out and look at some other plants. The cherry trees are getting ready to bloom, set fruit, so we're hoping we don't have a late frost this year. And we will...
What we got behind you here, Phil, the red plant?
The red one blooming back here is one of the red flowering quinces, Camellias. We have probably 5 colors of those. We have some other colors we'll show you as we walk around. Of all the landscape plants that we grow, probably one of our favorites are the Japanese maples for a variety of reasons, but the one we're looking at right now is Acer palmatum. It's first ghost. And one of the things that is so striking about the Japanese maples is the venation on the leaves. Just fabulous color contrast. Japanese maples give you a color, a spring color like this one has now, then they have a summer color that comes on. Then in the fall, each different variety of species of Japanese maples turns a different fall color. So there's over 550 Japanese maples, and this is one of my very favorites, the first ghost, and we'll show you some others later as we walk about. The plant we see here this morning here is one of the yellow magnolias. I believe this one's name is Golden Gift. Most people are familiar with the tulip magnolias that you see that are generally pink or darker red. This one's a little unusual in that it's yellow, and you get a really nice effect late in the evening with the sun catching into early morning. It's almost like lantern lights that are lit up, and one of our favorite plants. This plant will get probably 20, 30 feet tall eventually, but a magnificent specimen as it flowers. They're not open this morning. It's still a little cool and early in the morning when we're shooting this, so these flowers will open more later in the day. Has a great fragrance also. We also here at Eden try and grow a lot of native plants and incorporate them into our garden, since we're a blend of native and constructed gardens. And this morning this is a windflower that you'll find growing out in the woods wild. Makes a beautiful little accent plant, and coming in before it is a small painted fern that's just starting to come up, and also one of the gingers that we have growing wild in this area, which in rock gardens or small container gardens make a great accent plant. Has a little flower that's very nondescript. We may be able to find one later that actually has a bloom open on it. The tree we have here before us right now is another one of the Japanese maples, the Acer palmatum Makawa yatsubusa. Has a beautiful leaf structure on it that's somewhat different from most of the Japanese maples, and a great color this time of year as its spring color comes out, and actually retains this color throughout most of the year. One of my very favorite Japanese maples. This is another one of the Japanese maples that we find to be one of our favorites. This is Acer palmatum scolopendifolium, and you can see by the leaves that it has a lot narrower leaf, different growth habit than the others, which is one of the great things about them. They all give you a little different structure, different color, different type of leaves. So I never found them boring, no matter how many species that we have growing. Another of our favorites. This is one of the red buds, the Circes. This is one of the white flowering ones. It seems to be rather slow growing. Quite often the odd colors don't grow quite as fast as the other ones. This one's probably 10 plus years old, and you can see from size of it, it's not very big, but the flowers are striking, and they really set a contrast to the greens around them. Another great species to grow in the garden. We love the red buds. They give you year-round viewing and pleasure with them, and we like them quite a bit. The camellia we're looking at this morning here, this is Camellia Japonica. They're the ones, Japonicums, that bloom this time of year and have been blooming for the last probably month and a half, 2 months. This happens to be Les Marberry, which has a great peppermint stripe and great coloration. You get a lot of variations in these, but this is a particularly nice camellia, one of our favorites. Another plant that's really interesting in the landscape is the buckeye. A lot of people are familiar with the native buckeye, the horse chestnut, also with the red buckeye, which has a red flower. This one's a little more unusual. This is Fort McNair, and it has an orange flower. I don't know if Chad's going to get the picture of the buds, but they're just about to open in another probably week and a half. Beautiful orange dapple flower on it that's also fragrant. Another great tree, landscape tree for the home gardener. Among our favorite Japanese maples, as always, like I said, there's hard to pick one which is truly your favorite. But this time of year, this is Acer palmatum Purple Ghost, and the venation on it, like First Ghost that we looked at earlier, is one of the reasons we grow this particular maple, and it just glows with the morning sun hits it. And it does hold good color throughout the summer months, and in the fall gives you a brilliant red fall foliage. These are white ajugas that we're looking at here. It's a ground cover. It blooms this time of year. A really nice ground cover. It's well behaved. It doesn't get out of control with rampant growth. Comes in other colors, comes in purple, but one of our favorite ground covers. What we're looking at now is one of the Jack in the Pulpits. This is not a native. This is one of the Japanese jacks. It's actually Psychocyanum, has a magnificent flower, as you can see. Cobra lily is one of the other names that sometimes they put on because the flower top itself looks somewhat like a cobra, but this is a little different than most, that the internal parts of the flower are white instead of the normal black that you see in the native ones. But a beautiful plant, somewhat rare, but a beautiful addition to the garden. The tree that we're looking at here is another native. We try hard to incorporate as many natives into the landscape. They're hardier, they have less problems. This one you usually find along creek banks, but does grow well in other places. This is Halil, the Carolina silver bell. You can see it has beautiful flowers that hang down. Has beautiful bark also that's striped. And planted at the base of it here, as we transition down, is another native plant, Tyrella, our foam flower. Has beautiful leaves, a great little flower. Another kind of ground cover that does well. It's not invasive. Has pretty much 9 months of interest in the garden, so one that we do like a lot and have in quite a few places. What we're looking at now is one of the many azaleas that we grow here. We love them mainly because of their beauty, but the hummingbirds love them, and it's about time for the hummingbirds to be coming in. I don't know the specific name of this one, but has beauty both as the buds are forming before they open and also when it's open. So the color formation is just excellent. One of our very favorite azaleas, and I do wish I knew its name. This is another of the native azaleas that we've incorporated into the landscape. It grows pretty frequently throughout the foothills area here. This is a pinkster, fragrant. The butterflies and hummingbirds like it. The color is beautiful. One of the great landscape plants that we have that comes native to our area. What we're looking at here is Lamium. You can see it has a beautiful variegated leaf, also a very nice yellow flower. One of the better ground covers that we use. It's not that invasive. It's easily removed if it becomes a problem or gets too thick for an area. Roots easily, spreads good, well behaved. Just another beautiful ground cover that people can incorporate in their gardens. The plant we're looking at now is a Florida Anise. Does well here in the Carolinas. Has a beautiful burgundy flower. Leaves are very fragrant when you crush them and have an anise smell. Once the flower goes, you get a seed pod that's probably an inch and a half in diameter that looks wonderful on the tree. But a wonderful landscape tree, adds a lot of color. Comes in white, creamy yellow, and we're very pleased with the growth rate on this one. It's done really well in this area. This is one of the many Trilliums, one of the natives that we love in the garden. This is Wake Robin, is native more to the mountain areas than here, but this is one that we've brought in, and we'll show you some other ones as we go through the garden. But a lot of baby hellebores also in this area that we can see that the flowers are now going to seed. They've been blooming since December. Another landscape plant that's just magnificent to have. And I don't know if Chad can zoom in here, but this is a white anise like the red one that we looked at earlier. You can see the flowers are white and they're starting to get ready to form the seed pods on them. Okay, this is Trillium Canadian, Little Sweet Betsy. One of the ones that really has a great fragrance. The flowers are closed now, but they will open up more. Color's very similar to the native sweet bubby tree that we have growing around. But great variegated foliage, reproduces well. One of the great plants for this time of year. This is we like a lot of vines and combine 2 or 3 generally on a post or in one area. This is the Carolina Jasmine. Has great fragrance, blooms over an extended period of time. Hummingbirds, the honeybees love it. A great plant, has great color. Not nearly as rampant as the Wisteria I tend to let it grow up and cover what area before I cut it back. But another great plant that's native to North Carolina and one we're very proud to have. What we're looking at here is one of the native Columbines. I don't know its scientific name, don't have that in front of me right now, but a beautiful pink and yellow flower. The Columbines are one of our very favorites. They seed out nicely, give you a lot of plants that you can move to other areas, and another one that the hummingbirds and the butterflies and bees like. Wisteria. Some people hate it, some people love it, some people tolerate it. It is dangerous. It is a rampant grower, the Chinese one that we're looking at here, but very fragrant. And we cut this one back about every 4 or 5 years just so it doesn't get totally out of control. I also have a white one that's just now coming into bloom. Looks like a snow waterfall coming off a mountain when the flowers get fully developed. Spectacular. We have managed to keep these from wrapping around the tree and killing them, and one of the reasons we cut them back periodically is for the safety of the trees that they're in, and also so they don't get totally out of control. But if you're careful, one that you can grow also can be grown as a tree. Maybe get Chad to show you one that I have in a tree form here next. But if you plant them out in the yard as a tree, you don't have to worry so much about the vines getting out of control. We're looking here at one of the wisterias that has been trained into a tree form. This one's probably 15, 20 years old. I do have to keep it cut back fairly severely, but you can see from the bloom that's on it, even maintaining as a tree, you can still get a lot of bloom. It just takes constant pruning each year to keep them in control and shaped properly. But this is, I think, a beautiful example of what they can look like trained in a tree form. This is another one of the Japanese maples that we like. This is Ariadne. Another one that we like for the venation of the leaves and the variance of color that you get in the spring. Just now coming into its own. Holds good color all winter long. And as we said, the Japanese maple is my favorite landscape tree. You just can't have too many. But one that's got really beautiful color. The tree that we're looking at in bloom here that looks a little bit like a dogwood, one of the cornices, but not. This is Viburnum Alna Folium. It's one of the native trees here in the foothills. It's also a common name is hobblebush or moosewood. Has beautiful bloom out each branch, and after the blooms you'll get a red berry that comes on that gives you added attraction throughout a little longer season. But a very subdued, very nice sized native plant that again goes well in the landscape. This is another of the vines that we really like. It's kind of sparse right now. I had to die back bad last year, but this is Lanisha sulfurea, one of the yellow tubular honeysuckles. Another favorite of the hummingbirds and the butterflies. When it's in full bloom and healthy, it's magnificent, and it is making a comeback. This is a wood hyacinth. This is another native upper regions of the foothills, more mountainous, but does really well in our area here. One of the different daffodils behind, cannot tell you its name, but I haven't ever found a bad daffodil either. But great plants for the garden. They naturalize easily and bloom steadfastly every year for you. This is another one of the deciduous native azaleas. Not really a flame, but very fragrant and just beautiful when it's blooming as it is now. Another favorite of the butterflies and the bees, and has a fairly long bloom period. Another of the Japanese maples, this is a butterfly maple, Acer palmatum butterfly. Has beautiful variegated foliage as it comes out here in the spring with more of a pink, creamy white and green contrast. Beautiful little tree in the landscape. Doesn't get too large, probably 10 feet at maximum. What we're seeing here is one of the viburnums that we have. This is one of the more fragrant ones that we prefer. This is Viburnum Eskimo. Has beautiful little tight flowers, but very, very fragrant. Very moderate in size. This one we're looking at is probably 15 years old. And it's still waiting for it to take off. This is another vine. This one's somewhat similar to Wisteria in that it's pretty rambunctious and a rapid grower, but not that difficult to keep under control. This is a Kebia. You can see with the flowers how beautiful they are, but it's also very fragrant and just a wonderful vine to have around. Makes a fruit about like a pawpaw, very similar to a pawpaw fruit in the fall. With just a brilliant purple inside of the husk of the fruit. Very interesting plant. Just a comment or two about container-grown plants. I do a lot of bonsai, but also I do grow a lot of azaleas in containers. They do exceptionally well being shallow-rooted. It gives you the ability to bring them into your living area, your outdoor area, your patio, while they're in bloom. Once the bloom is gone, you can move them back out to one of another area where they're not so conspicuous. But a wonderful plant for container growing. Takes minimum care, water, a little bit of fertilize. You have to repot them depending on the age and size of your plant and your container. Probably repot every 2 to 3 years just to keep them healthy and growing. But azaleas make wonderful container plants, and also some great bonsai, which maybe we can be able to show here in a little bit. This is one of the bonsais that's been left out all winter. This is one of the boxwoods. It's approximately 50 to 60 years old. It's one of the rescue plants that someone was going to dig up and throw away. Been in training probably 15 years and starting to come along. Boxwoods make great bonsai or container plants. They shape well. They don't necessarily have to be a round oval plant that you see growing most of the time, but can actually be shaped as a tree. This one in another 5 years will be a first-rate bonsai. If you're going to do bonsai, you need a lot of patience and slow results. This is another native plant that we brought into the garden. This is Rattlesnake Plaintain. Has a beautiful variegation of the leaves and also a nice little flower when it's in bloom. Does really well. Transplants real well also. Okay, what we're looking at here is another of the natives that you often see out in meadows and bottoms along creek glens. Makes a wonderful landscape plant if you have a little larger area, but this is a mayapple. Has a bloom that hangs underneath the rather large leaves. Not quite in bloom yet, and as large as the leaves are and the plant is at this point, in another 2 months it'll disappear completely. So it's a beautiful plant to have that comes and goes, gives you a short flower period, and but really one that we like here in the garden. The plant we're looking at here is another native, and we've talked about a lot of natives, but natives do well in this area, and they're beautiful plants, so we recommend them to a lot of people. But this is Galax. Gives you a nice color as it comes out in the spring, but the most significant feature about it is when it blooms, it will have a single flower stalk that comes up about 13 to 15 inches tall with beautiful white flowers covering about the last 5 or 6 inches of it. So a great plant, transplants well. There's a lot of them. It's not an endangered plant as far as I know. Does well in the garden, and one we highly recommend. This is a plant that probably not many people know about or familiar with. Looks somewhat similar to Solomon seal or your false Solomon seal, but this is Uvularia. Has some small white flowers on it, and just a real delicate plant that adds a bit of interest to your garden, and it's a nice word to say, Uvularia. This is another one of the Trillium. This is a rather rare one that you don't see very often. This is a nodding Trillium. You can see that the sepals of the flower go backwards and with a beautiful purple center, but kind of a nondescript one in the garden, but beautiful when you look at it and look closely at the flower formation. This is another one of the Japanese maples that the veination or the vein outlines are what make it attractive. This is Peaches and Cream, and you can tell by the leaves just how beautiful they can be, and it just lights up in the sun. Another reason that we like them. But one of our very favorites, one of my top 10, I would say.
Well, working in the lawn and garden is always a lot of fun, but there's always a lot of questions. So if you have some lawn and garden questions, come by and see us. We're the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. We're located in the back parking lot of First Baptist Church and also right beside the health department. Or give us a call, 632-4451, or look us up on the web, alexanderextension.com.